Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. In previous lab, we had discussed about installation and configuration of vCenter server for Windows. In this lab, we will be discussing about installation and configuration of vCenter Server Appliance 6.5. vCenter Server Appliance or VCSA is a pre-configured Linux-based virtual machine which is optimized for running vCenter server and its associated services. vCenter Server Appliance 6.5 now runs on VMware's proprietary Photon OS. It doesn't run on SUSE Linux. That's the reason the deployment of vCenter Server Appliance 6.5 is much faster than previous version of VCSA. There are a lot of new capabilities have been added in VCSA 6.5. For example, native high availability, the native backup and restore for vCenter server, a separate dedicated management UI for monitoring, for configuration and managing vCenter server. Update manager is also integrated with VCSA 6.5. And most importantly, you don't need to purchase any additional Windows licensing for vCenter server deployment. These are because of all these reasons and promising feature sets which are available in VCSA 6.5, VMware customers have started shifting to VCSA based deployment of vCenter server rather than Windows based deployment. So in this particular lab, we will be going through installation procedure of VCSA 6.5. So let's get started. Let's browse through ISO image. So if you see, Vim is basically used for vCenter server for Windows installation, and VCSA image is used for vCenter server appliance, which is a Linux-based vCenter server. So let's mount this image. And now if you see, we have a couple of folders which are serving different purposes of VCS installer. So for our purpose, let's click on VCSA UI installer. Now, since I am running this installer on Windows platform, that's why we'll be browsing through Windows 32 folder. If you are using this installer on Mac platform or Linux-based platform, then you have to use respective binaries. So click on Windows 32, and there we have a installer. So click on installer. And now this is our, if you see, this is our vCenter Server Appliance 6.5 installer screen. Now there we have 4 options available. The first option is for installing a new vCenter Server Appliance or Platform Services Controller Appliance. Upgrade options is used while upgrading your vCenter server from previous version like 5.5 or 6.0 to 6.5. Migrating option is used when you want to migrate your Windows-based vCenter server to a vCenter server appliance. For example, you have vCenter 5.5 Windows-based installation on your environment, and you want to shift your vCenter server from Windows platform to Unix-based platform or Linux or VMware VCSA-based platform. Then migrate option is used to serve that particular purpose. Restore operation is used to restore your vCenter server from previously taken backup. So this is for restore your vCenter server appliance from previous backup. Since we are going with the installation procedure, so let's click on install. So if you see, installation of vCenter Server Appliance is a 2-stage process. The first stage involves deploying a new appliance to the target vCenter server or any of your ESXi host, and the second stage completes the setup of the deployed appliance and it configures the specific services. So There are two stages of your VCSA based deployment. The first stage will deploy the OVF and it will build up the environment. The second stage will go and configure the specific services for that appliance. Click on next. Accept the terms of license and agreement. Now again, here also we have a two kind of deployment model: embedded platform services controller and external platform services controller. So if you want to deploy vCenter server with embedded PSC, you can select this option, and if you want to deploy vCenter server with external PSC, you can select this particular option. In this particular lab, we would be going with embedded platform services controller type of deployment. So select this option, click on next, provide. Now in this wizard, it asks you where do you want to deploy this VM. So we need to provide the IP of our either of our ESXi host where this VM is going to be deployed, or our vCenter server name. So I'm going to deploy this VM on one of my ESXi host. Give a credential of that ESXi host. Click on next. It will it will connect to your target server, whichever you have defined. So in our case, it is trying to connect to a target server infra-esxi2.govmlab.com. Once it has reachability to target server, it asks to accept SSL certificate or SSL. Now it is validating those configurations. Now in this wizard, it asks you to provide a name of a VM which is going to be deployed as a vCenter server appliance on the target server which we provided in the previous wizard. So I'll just give a name VCSA-01A, give a password, click on, click on next. Now you can select the deployment size of your VCSA appliance. So if you select tiny deployment size, it would require 2 VC, it will consume 2 vCPUs, 10 GB memory, 250 GB of storage. It could manage maximum 10 hosts or 100 VMs up to. Similarly, we have a small, medium, large, X large. So based on your deployment requirement, you could go and select the deployment size. So for a lab purpose, we'll go with the tiny. Storage size, again, we'll go with the default one because it's our test lab environment. So we don't want to use much of the storage. Now, since the target ESXi host is having only one data store, that's what it has been shown here, and it is having a 823 GB of approximate 823 GB of free space. I'm selecting enable thin disk mode in our test lab environment because it will consume the disk space as on demand, as when the application or VCSA requires it. So for test lab environment, it's better to select enable thin disk mode. But in production environment, it is always recommended to have a thick disk mode. Okay. Now in network section, you can select which network you want to connect to your VCSA so that you can get the proper network connectivity. So you can define the management network, appropriate management network here. IP version is IPv4. IP assignment, you could assign static IP or you could assign DHCP IP. But I would always recommend you to have a static IP assigned to your vCenter server. That's one of the first requirement of VCSA or vCenter server deployment, no matter whether it is a Windows-based vCenter server or it's a Unix-based or a Linux-based VCSA appliance. But the recommendation is always assign a static IP to your vCenter server because it's a critical infra VM of our entire virtual infrastructure. So let's give a name vcsa-01a.govmlab.local. Give an IP name 20.4. Subnet mask 255.255.0, default gateway 20.20.20.1, DNS server is 20.20.1, and it would be using a well-known ports, HTTP port 80 for HTTP connectivity and port 4434 HTTPS connectivity. Now, once you have provided all the deployment, all of the network configuration, you could review all of your deployment details here. For example, what is your target host, the name of the VM which will get deployed on this target host, the type of vCenter server, which is a embedded PSC, the data store, the type of disk mode, your network configuration, what IP you have assigned, what DNS name you have assigned, all those things. Once you review all this configuration, click on finish, and if you could see, the installation has started. Now you could see it is now started deploying the appliance, which is the first stage of our VCSA deployment. So now let's log into our target server on which this VM is being deployed. So if you remember, this is our target host, which we provided at the time of VCSA deployment. And now you could see we have a one VM called vcsa-018.govmlab.local, right? And if you see, the installation of that VM is in progress. So that's what the installation phase is right now. It is deploying the appliance, and we could see the progress as well on our target host. So it will take a bit of time. So let's wait for deployment to be finished. Now, if you could see, the deployment of the VM is completed. Let's go and check it out. Yeah. So if you see, the VM has been deployed. VM has been deployed. Now let's click on the VM. It will ask you for the credentials. And it looks like the VM is being rebooted now. Right, so if you could see, the VM has been deployed successfully, and now it has moved to the next process, next stage, where it is installing a required RPMs, which is required for vCenter functioning. So let's go back to our installer phase. So like as I said, it is installing vCenter components in that VCSA, just like what we have seen during our Windows vCenter server installation. It will take a bit of time, so let's wait for this phase to be completed. Now, if we see, the installation part is done, and now the storage is being configured on our VCSA appliance. So let's see the state of our appliance VM. Now you see the VM has been booted, all of the RPMs and required components has been installed, and now what is being done is basically the storage configurations are being setting up. Yeah, you could see it has installed a couple of RPMs. You could see, now you could see it is installing update manager RPM. Now you could see, after RPM installation, it is configuring our machine, it is configuring the network configuration of our VCSA. And now, like as we could see, the stage 1 of our VCSA deployment process is completed successfully. So it shows very clearly here you have successfully deployed the vCenter server with an embedded platform services controller. To proceed with stage 2 of the deployment process, click continue. So if you want to do it now, you can click on continue and it will take you to the stage 2 of our deployment process. And if you want to do it later, you can just go browse through this link vcsa-018.govmlab.local, which is our VCSA name, and the port number 5480. So once you give this port number, it will take you to the stage 2 of our deployment process. So let's click on continue. Now this is the stage 2 of our VCSA deployment with an embedded PSC. Click on next, provide NTP server. So just select synchronous time with NTP server. Our NTP server IP is 20.20.1. If you want to enable SSH, you can enable SSH for VCSA. Click on next. Now we need to create a new SSO domain. So we'll create the default domain vsphere.local. You can create any of your customized domain as well. Give a password VMware, password for our SSO user. Let's keep the site as default site. Click on next. If you want to join VMware's customer experience improvement program, you can do that. For now, I'm just clicking this CEP program. Now there, if you see, we have a overall deployment details, network details, what we have defined for our vCenter or our VCSA, the appliance detail, moreover NTP server details, SSO details. Our SSO domain is vsphere.local, username is administrator. We have opted out for CIP settings. Click on finish to proceed with installation. Now if you see, it shows a warning, you will not be able to pause or stop the install from completing once it started. So click on OK to continue. And now if you see, the appliance setup procedure has been started. So like if you could see, it is starting a VMware authentication framework service. So if you remember, in the previous stage, we have deployed a required RPM for vCenter services. And in this particular stage, this particular phase of installation, all of those services which are required for vCenter functioning will be starting or will be configured. Yeah, as you could see, it is starting VMware Service Control Agent, service, it's starting VMware vCenter services, starting VMware vSphere client services. Yeah, at this stage of installation, it's starting VMware Update Manager service. Now we're almost at the end of the installation. It is starting VMware Performance Charts services on that appliance. Now you could see the stage 2 of our VCSA deployment is also completed successfully. It shows very clearly here. We have successfully set up this appliance. And if you want to access our appliance, this is the link which is mentioned here. So either you can click on this link, it will take you to the appliance page, or you can browse it separately. So let's click it here. Advance, proceed. And this is our getting started page. So like, as I mentioned earlier in the previous lab, so we could access vCenter server to any of two of our clients, web client and our HTML5 client. So let's get started with the vSphere web client. So click here, web client page, provide your credentials, administrator at the rate of vsphere.local, VMware 1, click on login. Now you could see we could log into our vCenter web client. So this is our, if you see on the top leftmost corner, we have, this is our VMware vSphere web client. And now from this point onwards, we don't, from the UI perspective, we don't see much difference whether you're using a VCSA based deployment or you're using a vCenter Windows based deployment. So this is our web client interface. And if you want to switch to your HTML5 based client, just click here and it will take us to HTML5 based client. So this is what pretty much all about this lab. So let's log out this lab, and this is what it is all about, our vCenter server VCSA 6.5 deployment. So as you could see, the deployment of VCSA 6.5 is pretty straightforward. The only difference between Windows based installation and the vCenter VCSA based deployment is like VCSA based deployment is a two-stage process. In the first stage, it goes and deploys OVF on our target vCenter server or ESXi host, and then basically it goes and configure all of the required services, network, and storage configuration as well. Once the second stage of the deployment is done, then we can use any of the client, either web-based client, which requires Adobe Flash Player, or we can use HTML5-based client to browse through or to manage our virtual infrastructure through vCenter server or VCSA. That's all in this lab, guys. I hope you like this video. Thank you.